Ruth Lundie holds degrees in psychology and theology from the University of Stellenbosch. She has a deep passion for community development and has worked in the NGO sector for the last 20 years. In 2014, she joined Common Good, an NGO, where she piloted Early Life Initiative. In 2017, Ruth conducted extensive research, a project for Common Good, and it was entitled The Role of the Local Church in Supporting the First 1,000 Days of a Child's Life in Cape Town, where Ruth is based. So there you hear the important terms, the role of the local church. You hear about supporting children, and you hear about first 1,000 days. So we would get back to that. The report of research is published, as well as a shorter version of that in Christian Journal of Global Health, published in 2020. Ruth is head of programs and partnerships for the Sikunye Initiative, based in Cape Town. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a leader, she loves the Lord, and she loves children. Welcome, youth. What a joy.
Thank you, Johannes. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
All right, thank you. All the sound and the view, everything good. As we kick off Sabbath Children and Youth Month, can you share a bit about your experiences as a child and also as a mother?
Thank you, Johannes. Yeah, as you think about faith formation and the topic today, and I reflect on my childhood, I can say that it's a real blessing as I look back at my childhood that I was born into a loving, strong Christian family, and so also born into the church. I'm a December baby, and so my very first Christmas, I was the nativity baby at church. And then fast forward to being a mother. As you mentioned, I'm a mother of three, one son and two daughters. We are not in the early years anymore. We have teens in the house, and my youngest turns 13 in a few months' time. And as I think about my experience as a mother, I'd say that those first few years as a new mom, it was quite an overwhelming experience, and there was so much to learn. And having babies and toddlers in the house was like God putting up a mirror to my own heart and to my own life. And really, it was very revealing. It was very humbling in my own faith journey. And my children have taught me so much about God and about myself. And God has guided us as a family, I'm blessed to say. And it's been so beautiful to witness the faith formation of my children and them owning their own faith as they've gotten older. So it's been a beautiful journey.
Amazing, wonderful to hear. Now, in the first part of today's session, your part, we're focusing on the first 1,000 days. And as I picked up, that was also in the title of your research. Could you help us understand this concept, please?
Sure. So the first 1,000 days, this might sound like a funny term, and for many, this is a new term. But the first 1,000 days is from conception or pregnancy to 2 years of age. And so if you count up those days, you add up pregnancy, the first year and the second year, you get to this number 1,000, hence the term, the first 1,000 days. And why is this so important? Well, we see that with scientific advancements and research, more and more we're seeing the incredible development that's taking place during this time in a young child's life. And often it's referred to as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because what is happening during this time is really laying a foundation in the child's life for all future development, growth, and health. And so it's a period in a person's life of significant development. And it's also a time where there is vulnerability and risk at this time. And so at Sikunye, we like this quote that we found, that when you pay attention to the beginning of the story, you can change the whole story. And so we putting a spotlight on the first 1,000 days and how can we pay attention to the beginning of the story.
Thank you. You've referred already to this amazing development during that first 1,000 days, that window of opportunity. Let's delve into the significance of the physical growth in the first 1,000 days. Why is this so crucial for long-term development?
Johannes, it's an important question. Why is it so important? So what science is showing us is the incredible brain development that's taking place in this time, that this is really a never to be repeated time in a person's life, that we see the brain is growing the fastest during this period of time in a child's life. And over 1 million neuron connections are taking place, connections are happening per second in a baby's brain at its peak. And so we see that by the age of 2, a baby's brain is about the 80% of the adult size in weight. And so this is significant. There are millions of neurons sparking and connecting, and what neural pathways are being connected. Now, what do I mean by neural pathways? Is that with every new experience that a baby has, whether this is a positive experience or a negative experience, the baby is creating pathways in their brain. The brain, those neural connections are happening. And these experiences, the more they are repeated, the more it strengthens those pathways. And so we really see in this time how the brain is taking shape. It's laying foundations for all future thinking, feeling, development and growth. And so if you think of like a pathway, a field, and a field has a path that goes through it. For that path, people have walked over it and over it, over it. And the things that we want to be strengthened, we need strong pathways for children. And so we think of children being ready for school later on. And often we can think of school readiness is when they're in grade R, that they need to learn to write and language development. But actually what we see is something like language development is peaking at the age of 6 months, that those pathways are being laid so that when the child gets to grade R and grade 1, they're able to learn to read and write because those pathways have been put down as early as 6 months. And so there's incredible development that's even hard to imagine when we think of this age group.
Thank you so much. Now, if this physical development is so important, quite often it doesn't develop according to plan. So let's address some of the physical challenges. So what is stunting, and how does it affect development? And can it be reversed later in life?
Good question. So when we look at the children in South Africa and how they're doing, we see devastatingly that actually in South Africa we have one of the highest rates of stunting worldwide, where we see 1 in 4 children are stunted by the age of 5. Roughly 27% of all children in South Africa under the age of 5. And this is a crisis. And this crisis is starting as early as pregnancy and during the first 1,000 days. And even before that, they're showing that even if a mom is stunted, she's more likely to give birth to a stunted baby. And so stunting, what does stunting mean? Stunting refers to a condition where a child's height is significantly lower than the average age. And this is a condition that comes from prolonged undernutrition that affects the child's physical development, but it also affects the brain development and it affects the health outcomes. So it's not just about the physical height. The stunting and undernutrition affects how that brain is developed and the physical health outcomes. And so we see stunted children are less likely to finish school. Stunted children on average also earn lower when they're an adult, and they struggle with health and illness issues. And so this is really about inadequate nutrition and malnutrition, which is one of these key focuses, that we see that a child is not getting enough good nutrition. And when I say that, we could even have children who are overweight but are stunted due to malnutrition, where we are feeding our children empty food with very little nutritional value. And so your question is a hard question. Is stunting reversible? And I'd say largely it's actually irreversible unless there's early intervention. In the early years, in these early childhood years, we need to improve the nutritional status of our children. And that's why there's such an important focus on nutrition in the early years to try and mitigate some of the effects that we see of stunting. But what's really important is stunting is completely preventable. It's completely preventable. And it's something as South Africans we need to pay attention to. That's the first 1,000 days being really important. We need to pay attention to mothers and babies and their good nutrition, high quality care, and healthy environments to see that they aren't stunted and that children can get a strong start to life.
I can just imagine if you were given a pulpit and you can preach on this topic, they might ask you, what is your Bible verse and where does that come from? But we can imagine physical growth has an impact on the inner growth. So would you focus on that? What's your thought on inner growth? We talk about emotional, cognitive, social, and especially spiritual growth in the first 1,000 days. Could you tell us more?
So when you think of a young baby and what I've just described, what we realize is that all day, every day, a young baby, right from birth, even in the womb, they're actually learning. Even in the womb, babies are learning, and they're learning from the world around them. That significant brain development is happening and laying those foundations, and I said, for all future learning, growth, everything that they're going to do. And so we see that there is emotional development taking place in the space, that mental wellness is important. The stress in the household, stress for baby, stress, maternal stress, paternal stress are important. How responsive those adults are for the emotional development of that baby. Social development, the foundations are being laid for a baby to be confident, to be socially capable, to trust the world around them, to trust others. And this is built through those significant adults in their lives. And so we see that emotional, cognitive, and social development is really important. And the question we often overlook when we think about development and a young baby is the spiritual side. I think we often overlook and we don't realize that God is actually with the child in the womb. When we look at Psalm 139, he describes himself, the psalmist describes God being in the womb. And so we see that spiritual development starts right at the beginning of life, that God has breathed life into us. We're made in his image, and right from the beginning. And it's not only happening when they're at school and they can comprehend and we can talk to them about faith, but there's something happening right at the beginning, because God has created us as a whole person, that we've got that cognitive, emotional, social, and spiritual side to us right from the beginning.
Thank you so much. So far, we've discussed development and understanding first 1,000 days. We now turn to something of more the action and what can be done. So we're here in different roles. Some are parents, some are pastors, some are teachers. So how vital would you see the role of parents and close family in this total development of children during the first 1,000 days?
Such an important thing that we need to pay attention to here, and I think none of us would argue this, that actually parents play an incredibly important role. But let me unpack that a little bit. We are, very importantly, we're born into relationship. A baby can't care for itself. And those relationships are really important, that God has created us for relationship, and we're born into relationship with our mother, with our father, those adults that are caring for baby. They play such an important role to ensure that baby gets everything that he or she needs to grow and to thrive. We talk about the fact that all children need nurturing care or responsive nurturing care. And this care is coming from those adults who are responsible for this child. But I want to say, connected to that, we know that parenting is really hard. And if we say that the whole ambit of care is lying on the shoulders of our parents, we need to be careful, because we need to realize that parenting a young baby can be really hard, and bringing a baby into a household is a massive adjustment for everybody involved. And so we need to look at our parents and saying, how are they doing? We also need to think about the fact that our parents, there are other added stresses that are impacting our parents and the ability to care well for our children. And so we see that many parents are struggling. In South Africa, they're isolated behind 4 walls with a crying baby. Statistically, we see 1 in 3 mothers are struggling with maternal depression. We see about 30% of mothers manage to successfully, exclusively breastfeed babies in the first 6 months. That means so many mothers are struggling with breastfeeding. And we spoke about stunting. They need that extra care and support. And so significantly, we see in South Africa that our households, our families are struggling with over 1 million babies born each year in South Africa. Nearly 50% of these children are not getting enough of what they need to thrive. And this is a massive problem. And this is not just our parents' problem, but this is our problem as a society that we need to look at. And so at Sequoia, we say all families need support. All parents, regardless of their status in life, they all need support. And some families need targeted support. They need extra support. And so this is where they need that caring relationship. They need that information and skills, and they need services of professionals to help them to thrive.
Now, this is where you focused in your research, is the support to family, to parents. So you say we should not overburden them with responsibility. They are the primary caregivers, but we should come around them. So what role can the local church play in raising awareness? And how can the church equip its members to play that role?
Yes, completely. I am convinced, as a mother of 3, and as somebody who works in the space, that we were never meant to parent alone. As I mentioned earlier, I think God has created us to be in relationship, to be in community, and that we weren't meant to parent in isolation and alone. And in order for our parents, our mothers, our fathers to do well, they need to be in environments, in spaces that are helping them to thrive and to do well. And this is where we see the church community can play a really important role in creating these spaces, in creating these environments where our parents, where our mothers, where our fathers, where our other caregivers who are caring for young babies feel cared for, feel supported. And so in our research, we did ask this question: what is the role? And as you've mentioned, this research has really shaped what we see the role is of the church. And we are deeply convinced that the church is uniquely positioned to equip and uniquely positioned and equipped to make a significant impact in nurturing children's full potential by supporting their development in the first 1,000 days. And so the church has a vital role in changing the trajectory of South Africa's children so that they can all get a strong start. So let's think about the church. If you think about the church in South Africa, there is a church almost on every corner. There are big churches, small churches. There are churches scattered all over South Africa. And so the local church in South Africa has incredible reach into the homes, into families. And so we have an incredible reach to make a difference in the space. At the same time, the local church, we still have a trusted voice in South Africa. We have influence. And so there's a vital role that we can play to be reaching mothers, to be reaching fathers, and to be reaching the broader community that is around this family, the system that this family finds themselves in. And so as churches, we can be speaking up about this important stage. Many don't know about it. I imagine some people, even on this symposium today, it's the first time they've thought about the first 1,000 days. And so there's a critical role for us to be speaking up and helping people to pay attention to the beginning of the story. As churches, we have also this unique position where we naturally come around and build this sense of community. And so we can come around families. We can come around and provide this layer of support to help families to do well, which is very different to the other stakeholders and role players. We need health facilities, we need government, we need Department of Social Development. But the clinic isn't going to go to mom and put her hand on her shoulder and say, "Mom, how are you doing?" and have a long chat with her. That's where we as brothers and sisters in the church can come around families and care for them. We can also, as churches, equip parents with good information and help them to understand this new role. I don't know about you, but when many parents feel like they wish they had a manual that could tell them how to raise a child. And this is where we can provide parents with good information, with good support in this space. And we can pray for them. We can be that community of a modern day village around our families where we are praying for parents and with parents and making sure that they are doing well. We can refer them to services and make sure that where they need extra support, they are getting that. And so there's so much that we as local churches can be doing to be strengthening these families and ensuring that they're doing well.
Thank you so much. As we wrap up this interview, can you tell us a bit more about the work you do? You are a leader in Secunye, so tell us a bit more about the focus on FTD, please.
So at Secunye, we do three main things. We raise awareness about the first 1,000 days, because for many churches, this, as we speak to them, this is a brand new thing. They've never really thought about it. And so a lot of the work we do is raising awareness, talking about it, mobilizing local churches, big and small, cross denominations, to play their part. And then once churches have said, yes, we're in, we want to be what we call a first 1,000-day friendly church, we as Secunye help with equipping and training and provide support along the way with ideas of how they can do this. So we ask churches, we don't tell churches what to do, but we provide a range of ideas that they could do given their context and given what their families are facing in their context. So we have about over 1,500 churches across South Africa that have said yes. They've committed themselves to being what we call first 1,000-day friendly churches, and they are looking for ways that they can be caring for and supporting mothers and fathers with children under the age of 2, using what God has given them. God has given each church unique strengths, unique assets, and saying, understanding my context, understanding our context, how can we do something different in order to pay attention to the beginning of the story. And so, Johannes, if I can share one quote from a church leader recently in one of our events, he said this, he said, to think of how we, most churches, include or involve baby during their dedication, and then we shelve them until they start Sunday school. And this is what many church leaders come to realize, is that we have got a children's ministry. We do care about children, but we don't have much that's very intentional and deliberate in this stage of life. And so that's where we come in as Secunye, is to try and help church leaders and church members see what they can do in this stage of life.
Thank you so much. Just before I ask you our last question in this session, for our audience, Ruth and Lisa might share with us towards the end some of the links where you can follow up. So our final question, Ruth, what resources does Secunye have? What have you developed? And what can be made available to us if the links are shared later? Thank you.
So we have a wide range of resources, and anybody that's attending today is welcome to have a look at it. But I'd say the very first place for people to start is our Church in Early Life. This is kind of our open day. We run these workshops on WhatsApp, so it's very accessible for anybody anywhere in the country to join in, and we run them regularly. And the big idea here is that people hear about the first 1,000 days and what the role their church can play, so a bit more of what I've shared today. And then a second one that people might be interested in this symposium is this month we've got what we call First 1,000 Days Month, or FTD Month. And this year our theme is Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, based on Psalm 139. And so over Mother's Day and over the month from Mother's Day to Father's Day, we have created a range of tools or resources for churches. We've got sermon guides, we've got devotionals, we've got messages that can be sent to parents. There's a whole range of things that are freely accessible and available, and they've been designed for churches to use over this time. So if you want an idea for Father's Day coming up next week and saying, how can we talk about this? We've got some ideas there that you can pick up and adjust and say, what can I use in my church to speak about this topic and to raise awareness that every child, right from the beginning of the life, is fearfully and wonderfully made, and that we as church communities need to come around them. So these are there and available. People are welcome to contact us, and they're welcome to go to our website and find the details there. They're welcome to be in touch with us via WhatsApp. there's lots that's available there. And so, Johannes, if I may, I'd love to close off my piece here with something that recently came in that I thought is so apt as we think about faith formation in the first 1,000 days. One of the members shared with us a voice note of her praying the Lord's Prayer with her daughter, and her daughter reciting the Lord's Prayer at 18 months. And I thought it'd be a perfect way to end off my slot here.
How beautiful is that? Thank you so much, Ruth. We will thank you at the end. Ruth, you're welcome to leave the stage for now. So I'll just explain the process now. I'll invite Nielen to move in on the podium with me. Nielen Bekker. He's based in the Western Cape as well. So they're both down south. There we see the man. Thank you, Nielen. Welcome. Nielen is the CEO of Imqeba Trust, an organization that is on a mission to prepare children in body, mind, and soul so that they can face their future with confidence and courage. Nielen, you grew up in Limpopo province. You studied BCom tourism before discovering your true passion for community development. You've been involved in the field of community development for the past 14 years, 8 of which at Imqeba. You strongly believe that early childhood development centers play a crucial role in building up a new generation of educated, motivated, and hopeful young people who will help build a brighter future for South Africa. I'm reading Nielen's own, it's almost like your credo, your manifesto. You are married to Lundie and you have 2 beautiful daughters. So welcome, Nielen. You can hear the applause. Following the format of our first speaker, I'm also share something, please, of your experience as a child and also as a father.
Yeah, thank you so much, Johannes. I just want to say that last clip that Ruth shared with us. I mean, so I need to come back into the space that was amazing. But I think from my side, if I can be a bit vulnerable, I didn't have the best of I didn't have the best 1,000 days that you could have. So I grew up without a father. My dad passed away before I was born. But I had a loving mother who did everything for us. And one of my most fondest childhood memories is my mom reading out of my children's Bible stories to me just before bedtime. And I must say, that kind of experience is something that I actually put forward with my own children. And just when I started with Imqeba Trust was more or less this. It was the same year that my first daughter was born, Mika. That was eight years ago. And I remember I went on a road trip and visited some reputable NGOs working in the ECD, early childhood development space. And I met a gentleman in KwaZulu-Natal, and just before I got into the car to leave for the airport, I asked him a question. I said, Grant, if I could get one thing right in this new job of mine, what would that be? And he said, great question. If you can get parents to spend an hour a day with their kids. And then he paused. He said, wait, I want to rephrase that. If you can get fathers to spend an hour a day with their kids, we won't have a problem in this country. And as I got into the car, that kind of stuck with me. And on the plane, I thought about it and said, it can't be that easy, an hour a day. And to my shame, I realized that I wasn't doing it. As a new dad, somehow in my mind, I thought there was certain things that was my wife's job. And then I put a challenge out for myself and said, listen, I'm gonna spend an hour a day with my kids. And one of the ways I did that was reading to them at bedtime. So I just had one daughter that time. And in doing that, I actually realized I had a deep need to connect and spend time with my daughter. In fact, it snowballed so much that at a stage my wife came to me and said, "Listen, you're taking over a bit. Can I have a can I have a turn?" So yeah, it was really very meaningful to me.
Thanks, Nielen. In a moment of inspiration, you use the term the second 1,000 days. Now, you didn't think that it doesn't make up a good abbreviation, STDs, but so you will have to work on that. But what do you mean by second 1,000 days?
So we can say the next 1,000 days if that's better. But I mean, Ruth explained it so well, and I mean she explained very well what the first 1,000 days were. So the next 1,000 days is basically from 2 years on until 5 years, and more or less the same that Ruth explained is what happens, in a child's life. That, I mean, a million neurons per second. I mean, that continues, and it peaks between the ages of 2 and 3. A child's emotional, cognitive, and social development. And one of the interesting things we've discovered over the last few years, as we did a research project with the Department of Education and Kula Development Group that works with school dropout children, is we wanted to see if we couldn't pick up early indicators in children in ECDs, early childhood development centers. If we couldn't pick up if they are going to be at risk of dropping out of the school system in grade R, grade 1, or grade 2. And we basically, the study found that there were 5 factors, and the 3 main ones were not what I expected, but was how they reacted when they got into a situation where there was conflict, and if they reverted to verbal violence or physical violence. And then we wanted to know why. And interestingly enough, those behaviors are established between the ages of 2 and 3. And again, interestingly enough, those behaviors are established by looking in their environment, home environment, or in the communities, looking towards a positive role model, a positive male role model, or negative, and then they learn those behaviors through watching how someone reacts when there's a conflict situation. So that was really fascinating, and so all of that just shows that how critical this age is.
So I want to combine 2 points here. The one is, what are the unique opportunities in that window between 2 and 5? And who do you think are best positioned to contribute to faith formation in that space?
Johannes, so I think I want to say that the foundations, especially for our Christian faith, is kind of formed during those years, and it's crucial. And like you mentioned, is that the mistake that many people make is that they think children are too young to learn at that age. They think children don't know what's going around, what's happening around of them. That's why parents will sometimes argue, and there will be conflict, and they wouldn't mind doing that in front of a child, because I don't think that child would actually experience what's going on, but exactly the opposite. And so the thing that I want to, if I can focus on one point, and that would be fathers. I mean, obviously ECDs play a massive role, but as soon as fathers step into the picture, another fascinating statistic is that, if a father reads to their child, that child will learn 33% more vocabulary than it would from his mom, and imagine if that is from the Bible, if that is God's truth. It literally just also mean that they will remember 33% more of what they've heard.
So it's back to family, and especially fathers, and then churches and Christian community organizations like yourselves who would come around and equip. So as CEO of Mteba, what are you doing? What is your strategy, and what type of resources have you developed? Could you tell us a bit more?
Okay, yes. So Johannes, so we've strategically chosen to focus on early childhood development centers. The reason for that is it's a centralized point, and it also helps us to reach the most children at one area, because they are gathered there every day. And so we focus on the concepts of nurturing care, nutrition, good health, quality education, responsive caregiving, and then safety and security. Now, where my heart lies, and I think where God is also, where you can find the Lord the most, is under the topic of okay, any case, so it's where parent involvement is, and love, responsive caregiving. Thank you. That's the word, under responsive caregiving. And so we've developed a children's discipleship resource that we call Bekker Kids, and again, it's something that the Lord guide us towards. So my office is here in Bekweni, in Paul, which is a Xhosa speaking community. And when we moved our office here, I said, okay, Lord, I don't just want to go and work in the township. There must be a reason. And so I trusted him for, I said, Lord, I'll trust you for 2 Xhosa young men. And so 2 of them came across my path, and then we started a small discipleship group. And then it grew to about 16 young men. But I quickly realized that they didn't know any stories from the Bible. You would say, oh, this reminds me of the story of David. Do you know the story of David? And they didn't have any reference to that. And so I actually went home, and I had to get my my old children's story Bible that my mom read to me from. And I started to share stories with them. And so this is where this Bekker Kids idea was actually born. And what we've done is we've combined this with the national curriculum for early childhood development. So the curriculum has 33 themes, and so we took 33 Bible stories and combined it with the themes. And then each story has been integrated with 11 values, biblical values. And then the idea is that the ECD practitioner will share 1 story per week for every week of the day program. And then it's been unpacked. That story has been unpacked through the week. So with this, in 2025, we've reached about 6,000 children. So yeah, that's one of the things.
Now I've got a big challenge for you. Can you present one lesson in under 5 minutes?
I'm gonna try. So normally the format is this. So this is the book that we normally use, and so that will be used in an ECD. Okay. So you'll see that the theme there is healthy living, water, teeth, and hygiene. And the value that we link to that is to be a good steward. So the theme is from the curriculum, national curriculum for early childhood development. You can go to the next slide. Okay. And so there you will see that there's the story of Daniel. And I think we all know the story. It's a bit small to read on my screen, but the idea is that the ECD practitioner will then share that story with the children, and you can go to the next slide, please. And so on the first day of the week, so the ECD practitioner would say, basically share with the children, what are some of your favorite foods to eat? Do you think they make you big and strong? And so the idea is there is to ask leading questions to the children, and then they would read the story. And then the next day, if you can go to the next slide. The next day is that we then help them to discover the story further and to remember what they've done yesterday. So it's continually interacting with the kids, and it's prompted. So every week, every day, it's the same, but it's a different story. And there's 43 of them. And then on the third day, they would retell the story to the ECD practitioner. And then on the fourth day, next slide. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. And then on the fourth day, which is Thursday, they would then, go into the value. So this week we've been talking about how Daniel and his friends only ate healthy food and drank plenty of water. So why is it important to eat healthy food? And then the value there is stewardship. So taking care of your body, eating healthy. Okay, next slide. And then on the Friday or the fifth day, there would be an activity. And so this is quite fun and interactive. So this is, for instance, this story is, do you want to become big and strong and smart? Well, then you need to eat healthy food like a crunchy apple or a yummy green broccoli and bright orange carrots. And then what would happen then is the teacher would then blindfold the kids, and they would take turns tasting and trying to guess what healthy food that is. And in the context where we work, that is so crucial, because many of the kids, they don't get introduced to these healthy foods. And so this is kind of like a double-edged sword, because it helps the ECD practitioners and the ECD as well to because remember, they're telling this story to the kids. They're conveying this value to the kids, so that value, is going to come back to them as well. So slowly we're seeing that behaviors change. And then obviously when we do our father programs, this is also then something that we use with the dads. And so that value is being repeated at home by fathers. Thanks, Johannes.
You shared with me an amazing story, and you can still decide for yourself how much could go public. But it's amazing how this product has become boosted and used beyond Christian circles. So just something of that, and how this contributes to holistic development, because you don't isolate. These guys are not going to come to a church. Churches generally don't reach those kids. But with this curriculum, you open that up and you bind it with fun, with information about food, healthy living. So just tell us a little bit about the backstory and where is this program reaching at the moment?
Okay, so Johannes, this is extremely exciting. And so we've co-developed a day program or a curriculum for early childhood development with F&B, which is I think everybody on the school will know, it's one of the biggest banks in South Africa, and they have a focus on early childhood development. And so we've developed a curriculum, open source, which is on their platforms. And then we took this in Leba Kids, and that curriculum is called Lala, which means play, but we've incorporated in Leba Kids with it as a resource, as an add-on. And F&B said, well, they love it. They're going to make it available on their platform. So this is available on F&B's platform, on the Bags platform, and on the F&B Care Facebook page, where people can then go and get access to this. But through this, we've also gone into 2 official pilots with the Department of Western Cape Education and the Department of the Northern Cape Education Department, and both of them have endorsed this. And then, interestingly enough, with the Western Cape Education Department, they've actually said on a few platforms that this is the program that they would prefer ECDs to use if they didn't have access to a curriculum or to a day program. And then the interesting thing is, it will then come alongside with this. And so we've got a few ECDs that have Muslim children in them, and or actually Muslim ECDs that we're supporting. So the principal is Muslims, and out of them, there's only one that didn't make this part of their curriculum, and that's the little creche in the mosque in Wellington. The imam said, no, this is a bit too close to home. But all the other Muslim schools are using it and benefiting from it. Yeah. So we are just amazed by God's just favor on this. And I think the perception of many people is that, education is closed for the gospel of Jesus Christ, and there's no opportunity. But actually, early childhood development is still open for now, very much so. Yeah.
In the Q&A, we will ask you for a link where people can access you, or where you can direct us to get something there. To close, just reflect with me on the reality that children in South Africa generally do not hear the Bible. So it's a shocking reality that there's a generation, and maybe a second generation, with no knowledge, as you found with your 2 friends down in your neighborhood. So it's probably too early to see how this product develops something of a foundation, gives, you say, 43 different Bible stories without preaching too much. It's just providing in an integrated way an understanding for biblical content. So what do you see as the value of this product?
Well, so first of all, Johannes, getting reading material into the space where young children learn. I mean, it's hugely beneficial, and I've been involved in so many conversations where academics would say we should bring back fables and all of that, but then I just thought to myself, no, we don't want to teach our kids about fairy tales. I mean, the Bible is so exciting. If you think of the stories in the Bible, Noah and Jonah and Daniel, it's these amazing stories, and it's God's word. It's truth, and there's values interlinked with it. So, we've positioned it. We know what our motives is, and that is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, and to get children to be discipled in biblical foundations and to follow Jesus. But this is positioned in a way that it's very cool stories, but with the Holy Spirit's help, it might not just stay there because it's God's word, and that's our idea. Is this we've made freely available, so it's open source material. Oh, I forgot to mention that it's in Afrikaans, English, and isiXhosa, and we are thinking of translating it into into other indigenous languages. This has also been used in Zambia, and they might translate it as well. And yeah, it's freely available for any ministry or any ECD to use.
Thank you so much, Nielen. You can hear the applause. Everyone is appreciating. Unfortunately, we will stop the interview part here.